Funny thing just happened to me. I spent the last 25 minutes talking to my webcam, and then I found out it wasn't on. Those of you who don't make YouTube videos will never know what that feels like. It's a special feeling. Anyway, let's get this question answer session started. Oh, you thought I was going to do it tomorrow or next week? No, we're doing this today. This is my day off, guys. We're getting some stuff done. So to everybody that didn't ask a question yet, sorry, sit and spin, guys. The early birds are getting the worm. So let's refresh the page and get the very latest comments. Here we go. Epic Lulz King says, miss the old Fakesagan. Well, that makes one of us, because I don't. These are comments awaiting approval? What the heck? I didn't set my thing up for approval. That means I have to go through and approve every... I want them to be automatically approved. Whatever. I'll deal with this later. You know this Google Plus thing. Don't get me started. Anyway, Epic Lulz King says, miss the old Fakesagan. Yeah, that's you. That's you, man. I don't. Zarash says, smooth. Welcome back. Thank you, Zarash. And by the way, everybody who's been asking for my old stuff, this is the guy. This is him. Zurassh. If he doesn't have it, it's gone. I used to have hard drives with my old videos on them. No longer. Those are gone. So if he doesn't have it, it's gone down the memory hole. Puppysoft says, you look like True Detective. Well, I should. I was on that show. Did you guys ever see the episode where Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey are like at this tent revival thing, and like the preacher is the dude from Boardwalk Empire? I'm in that scene, so look for me. Tommy from the Bronx says, yo bro, I sent you a message. The atheist thing not being one doesn't change my view on you. I would like to know, what have you been doing? How the fuck is life treating you? Miss me, lol. Yeah, I feel bad, Tommy, about the message thing. I asked you to send me a private message. I can't figure out how to get into my private messages, man. Ever since they revamped the layout of YouTube with Google Plus, it took me like an hour to figure out how to sign into my own account. So if some kind Samaritan in the audience wants to leave it in the comments and tell me how to access my own message box, I'd appreciate it. I don't even know where it is. So I'm glad your view on me hasn't changed, Tommy. What have you been doing? Tommy, you know I can't go into too much detail about that, for obvious reasons. I don't want to dox myself on the internet, especially being the somewhat notorious figure that I am. So I'd rather keep information like that to a minimum. I don't even really want people to know what time zone I'm in. But when you ask me what I've been doing, what you're really asking is how am I doing, right? I'm doing good. Doing good, Tommy. How you doing? And did I miss you? Yeah. Yeah. How could anybody not? Let's have a tour of that Kaczynski-like place you are inhabiting, says Napalm Tomahawk. Let's not. And I'm not miffed for you making that request. You're within your rights to ask, but the answer is no. For the same reasons I just said. There could be mail lying around, stuff with my address on it. I'm not going to pan the camera around this whole place. That's asking for trouble. I'd have to be as stupid as everybody thinks I am to do that. Napalm Tomahawk says, not an atheist. You must have gotten your hands on the spirit molecule, perhaps. Beyond Written Words says, title means big return. Yeah, whatever. Oh, you figured out how to use Google Translate. Good for you. Dark Knight Gnome D says Texas 101 says hi as well. Well, hello to both of you. Scotty Rules 33 says, interesting look you have going. So, are you living in the Russian Federation? Why are you not an atheist anymore? Thoughts, concerns about world events of today, NSA, Snowden, Russia taking over the Ukraine territories, list of topics to discuss. Oh boy. You asked a mouthful. So, we're going to save you for last, because that's going to take a while. The Astounding Agnostic says, holy shit, welcome back. Holy shit, thanks. Dark Knight Gnome D says, hi, it's me, DK Gnome D from Blog TV. I remember you. Free set up a Blog TV-esque site for us to use if you want to check it out. Camzone.tv. I might have to check that out. I don't want to check it out right now. I like this minimalist setup. I could deal with that. All right, I'm checking this site out later. Okay. Oh, that must be from the think tank thing. Oh man, we'll get into that. Okay, so what do we got next? Okay, so in the beginning was the Splurge. Says, are you a spiritual Buddhist or something now? No, I'm not a Buddhist. You know, I've never understood Buddhism. I get the whole existence is suffering and the cause of suffering is desire, sure. But if you want to be so sublimely unattached that you have no connections to anything and therefore you don't experience loss because you're like this Jedi who doesn't get emotionally involved, and you want to meditate until you kind of obliterate your consciousness and achieve a state of like death, which I think is actually what they call it. I got a great solution for you guys. And it's not Buddhism. Do it! Just do it! Quick and easy. You don't have to meditate. You can be dead. No more desire, no more suffering. I mean, there you go, guys. Hop right into that next body. Why wait? I don't get it. I've never understood Buddhists. So, Piggy's Go Moo says, glad you're back. I guess I'm glad I'm back so far. Thank you. Vorshk says, so not an atheist anymore. Are you a skeptic like the Armored Skeptic? I still do consider myself a skeptic, though I doubt other skeptics would consider me that anymore. Beyond Written Words says, you change you name back to whatever. That's 2 words, by the way, what and ever. It was when you were cool. I can see why you call yourself Beyond Written Words. Anonymous 501 says, I literally do not believe you're going to start making videos on any type of regular basis. Love you, Hardcase. I literally don't believe it either, but you never know. I am an unpredictable guy. I don't even know what I'm going to do next, which I'm sure some people on here can attest to. You know, this might be a flash in the pan, or I might be making 10 videos a day. I have no idea. We'll have to see how I feel at the time. And he goes on to say, and this is Anonymous 501, by the way, and he goes on to say, tell us why you're not an atheist, and is this some semantic definition bullshit? This is not semantic definition bullshit. This is true theism, complete with prayer. As for why I'm not an atheist anymore, I'm going to table that along with Scotty Rules, because it's going to take so long that I won't get to any of the other people if I do just jump right into it now. So we'll get to that, don't worry. Devin Jones says, yay, welcome back. Pawn some people. Discuss why you aren't an atheist anymore. Debate people. Well, who do you want me to debate? You? Debate me. Debate me. What do you want to debate about? Let's debate. What do you think of Black Lives Matter movement? I think it's a joke. I think it's a creation of the media, not a genuine grassroots movement. I think it's sort of like, I think the Black Lives Matter. I think the black. Okay, give me a second here. I think the Black Lives Matter movement is sort of like, it's like the domestic version of the color revolutions that we instigate overseas. You know, it's like that's our right sector, that's our ISIS. It's the astroturf violent fake army that we created here instead of in somebody else's country. And when I say we, obviously I don't mean you and me. I mean Wall Street. I mean the bad guys. So there you go. That's what I think of Black Lives Matter. I think they're full of shit. I don't even think most of the black community, most of the African American community in the U.S. takes them seriously. I think they see them for what they are. So I damn sure do. So what do we got next here? Talk you your new... Oh, okay, Firewall 5000 is the name of this guy, by the way. Talk you your newfound religious faith and how exactly that happened. That ought to make an interesting video. I will get to that. Make a video about the reptilian conspiracy. Oh, I'm using the wrong mouse. Two computers, I always forget. Talk about the reptilian. Make a video about the reptilian conspiracy, and that's the that's the vaginarchist. Good name, man. The vaginarchist. That would be rule by vaginas. So, Tumblr. I guess Tumblr is a vaginarchy. Talk about the reptilian conspiracy. It's bogus. See, this is where me still being a skeptic, like the armored skeptic, comes in. Just because I'm a theist now doesn't mean I believe in Bigfoot and aliens and just everything under the sun. You know, reptilians, come on. Now, the guy who came up with the theory, David Icke, I actually have a grudging respect for, because this is the same man who was the first to draw the connections between the PNAC memos and the Bush administration's policy. And we're talking about the Project for a New American Century, where they were talking about how we would need a Pearl Harbor-like event to get people on board with the new changes they wanted to make, and then lo and behold, we have a Pearl Harbor-like event. Ooh, coincidence. Or not. Well, that's David Icke, so I do kind of grudgingly respect the guy, but clearly he took some bad acid. Something happened there. I don't know. And I don't want to seem closed-minded, okay? If you guys can give me a convincing argument that there's reptilians, maybe I'll buy it. But the burden of proof is going to be pretty steep on that one. So, okay. But you believe in God now. Shouldn't you just believe in everything? No, it doesn't really work that way. So, God's Dark Fist says, welcome back, Fakesagan. I would like to know how your life has been. Since you're not an atheist anymore, what is your ideology concerning spirituality? Pardon me? And I would love to hear some political commentary from you. This race is making history. Is it? Is this race making history? God's Dark Fist? Really? I'm sure you have thoughts. Oh, I do. I'm glad you're well. I'm glad you're well, too. If you are you well? Are you well? I hope you're well. Oh, by the way, this was years ago, but I was a mod in your blog TV room. I PM you a link to a dog being put on fire. You got hella pissed and banned me. Lol. Honest man, sorry. I thought you would have chuckled. Yeah, I remember that still, and I didn't chuckle then, and I'm not chuckling now, and I don't know why you reminded me of that, because I forgot it was you, and we could have been on to a fresh start, but now I remember that that was you, so every time I see God's dark fist, my flesh is going to crawl. So thanks. Sorry, man, we have different taste in entertainment. So anyway, this race is making history. Is it really making history? This just seems like the last election to me, and the one before that. In other words, I feel like I don't have a dog in the race. It's just the two-party system, which, you know, Wall Street Party number one or Wall Street Party number two, duking it out for, like, who's going to get the tax breaks this year? Is it going to be Goldman Sachs, or is it going to be Chase Morgan? Because Goldman Sachs is back in the Repubs, and Chase Morgan's back in the Dems, so who's going to win? You know, ooh, I'm on the edge of my seat, guys. I can't wait to find out who the next president of the U.S. is. I can't wait, really. I'm riveted to this election. I've been paying such close attention. I know exactly the status of every candidate right now. I really do. By the way, can you recognize the subtle tone of sarcasm? I've been ignoring the hell out of this election. It's so stupid. It is so stupid. Donald Trump? Donald Trump? Like, do any of you millennials even know who this guy is? You guys don't know shit out like Ivana Trump and Trump Towers and all that stuff he used to get back into back in the day. Like, this dude has been humiliating himself in public like it's his job for decades. So I guess me and him are in the same line of work. But I don't think I'm qualified to lead a country. Apparently he does. And Hillary, don't get me freaking started. The Wicked Witch of the West, no thanks. And Bernie, Commissar Bernie, right? I want to wake up tomorrow in East Berlin. You know, we've already got secret police and government spying. Do we really need to put a communist in the White House and make it even worse? So there's no good choices. You know, I wanted Rand Paul, and that's not going to happen. And even Rand Paul, I don't trust worth a damn, but he was just the best of a bad bunch. And now it's just a bad bunch. So I don't care who wins. Leave me out of it. Because U.S. elections are like Alien versus Predator. Whoever wins, we lose. Just remember that. So, yeah, the race is making history. I really don't see that at all. I think this is like a presidential race that's going to be forgotten by history. I think if you read a history book about the United States Empire, the history of the U.S. Empire, like way in the future, the times that we're living in, like, it's all going to be one big chapter. It's not even going to get its own unique subheading. It's just going to be like, oh yeah, there was this big corrupt period where they had all these puppet presidents for years and years, and the banks just ruled everything. It was like a plutocracy for years and years and years. And then finally something changed. And like we're part of a segment of history that's going to be overlooked. Because we're ballless and gutless, and we're not doing anything about it. So history is going to forget us. Sorry. I don't see this as a history-making race at all. I think it's a joke. Step Back History says, so what is the story of the DD conversion? We'll get to that. Promise. Mark Tread says, the obvious question is, why aren't you an atheist anymore? We'll get to that, I promise. But you could tell us anything, like, what the heck have you been up to for the past year? A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Or what inspired your new look? Though probably not the most pertinent subject. Those of us from the old days miss you. You could probably even just give your review of a phone book, and that would get views. Oh, don't give me any ideas. Maybe I'll just read out of a phone. Trying to get me to dox myself. I see what you did there, you. Oh, you. That being said, there's nothing wrong with hanging up the towel either. Personally, I miss the old YouTube and what you and others did with it, but that climate doesn't exist anymore, whether or not you reluctantly return. It's just the way it is. Do it for you, bud. Thank you. That's what I'm trying to do, and I agree with you. It's never going to be the way it was, like, in 2006 before Google bought YouTube. I mean, it's a totally different animal now. It's censored up the ass. Like, you can't do anything. It's never going to be the way it was, but I'm going to make it as good as it can be. Now, what inspired my new look? I'm guessing that by new look you're talking about the hair and the stash. So let's start with the hair. I'm going bald, and I decided, which is not news, I was going bald since I started making these videos, and I decided I wanted one last hurrah with my hair. I wanted to grow it out one last time before I don't have any left, because it's just getting back there like a mofo. So I grew it out. As for the mustache, I'll give it to you right off the top, man. I'm trying to look like Abraham Ford from freaking The Walking Dead. I took one look at that guy and I was like, that's cool, I want that. And I'm admitting that because it annoys me when people never admit that they're copying social trends. Like, I remember in high school when Nirvana got popular in the 90s, like, and everybody started wearing the ripped jeans and flannel shirts, and if you asked them what they were doing, they were like, oh, I always dress this way, this is me. No, it's not, you're copying the band. Just admit it. Just admit it. Like, there's something wrong with following social trends. That's why they're social trends, because people like to do them. What are you, a specially unique snowflake? So yeah, I watched The Walking Dead. I saw a ginger with a cool facial hair pattern, and I said, hey, maybe that'll work for me. So far, I like it. Anyway, so the Time Traveler 83 says, topics to discuss: ISIS, Syria and Russia, Donald Trump, Muslims, comments, NSA and Apple row over iPhone hacking. Some of that is going to get saved for the end like the other ones did, but I'm going to answer some of it now. NSA and Apple? Clearly I support Apple and I hate the NSA. That should go without saying. Donald Trump, he's a clown. You know, I'm not going to draw comparisons to Hitler like some people do. I think that's ridiculous, but I don't think the guy is qualified to be a president. I don't. Then again, like, you don't need to be qualified to be a president to be the president anymore. I don't think you have for a long time. Like, it's not a job for a statesman. It's a job for, like, a soulless spokesmodel for the banks that can bite his tongue and do what he's told. And pretty much I could be the president. Anybody could. And it's not even a job anymore. It's like a mascot. It's like we have a mascot. Like, I really think the president should be like some guy in a fuzzy suit that, like, jumps off a trampoline and slam dunks for America. And everybody's like, ooh, ooh, ooh. Like, why not? I mean, it's not a real job anymore. It is not a real job. What do they do? Do you even think Obama is drafting any of these executive orders himself? No. The guy from fucking Goldman Sachs hands him a to-do list for the day. And then he does his job and shuts up. Or else they show him the Zapruder film and they say that's going to be you. So, yeah. Muslim comments. I don't get too many Muslim comments anymore because I don't talk about religion in my videos anymore. You know, I would make a public apology to the Muslim community for that F Islam video that I made way back in the day that got like over 2 million views and got my face on the front page of a Turkish newspaper whose cover story article was about the rise of Islamophobia in the West. Oh, the volatile mix of youthful indiscretion and social media technology. I really feel sorry for millennials. You guys are fucked. Anyway, I mean, these days you basically got to come out of your mama's womb with like the social graces and poise of an ancient Greek sophist And most of us don't have that, so I could really see the potential for this ruining a lot of lives. Fortunately for me, I'm not planning on going to Turkey anytime soon. But, you know, me and the Muslims, I think they've forgotten about me. I think they've moved on to bigger and better infidels. Yeah, and I feel bad for dissing on their religion. I was young and dumb, guys. What are you going to do? So, what do we got here? Although, I want to interject this. Though I regret a lot of the things I said back in the day, I'm not ashamed of the person I was. I actually kind of admire him. He had a lot of passion. So, ISIS, Syria, and Russia. Big topics. We're going to save those. But as far as ISIS goes, let me knock that one out of the way. Purely our creation. That is our baby. ISIS was created by the United States. And it's history repeating itself. We did the same thing in the 1980s in Afghanistan when we funded the Mujahideen to fight the Soviets. And we're doing the same thing. We created ISIS to mess with Putin, right? So it's the same thing. And just like the Taliban was chickens coming home to roost when they took down our Twin Towers, now we've got the Paris attacks. We've got the Paris terrorist attacks perpetrated by ISIS because got to build a pipeline, guys, right? Hell, let's give some money and weapons to those crazy guys. It's worked in the past. And if they end up becoming the new Ottoman Empire, then I guess it turned out to be a bad move, right? It's your tax dollars hard at work. So the terror tyrant says, I would love for you to be on the Drunken Peasants, but I don't know the likelihood of that happening. Welcome back. Yeah, the likelihood of that happening is pretty slim because I have no interest in doing it. So don't hold your breath for that one to happen anytime soon. Besides, like, you know, the Drunken Peasants, I guess I'm kind of veering into the realm of ponage with this, which isn't what I intend, because I really don't want to get involved with TJ or any of those people anymore. I'm kind of doing my own thing now, but, like, don't you guys see that for what it is, which is an obvious grab for more ad revenue dollars, without having to do the real work of like, scripting and producing and editing a video? It's like TJ discovered reality TV. It's like he figured out the same thing that TV producers figured out in the, I guess, the aughts, which is that, oh boy, the profit margins increase dramatically if we pump out a bunch of crap instead of actually making good stuff. Shocking revelation, yeah. I guess I call that the Walmart model of business, right? So if you guys want to spend your time watching shit like that, go for it. But, you know, if I want to have like a Drunken Peasants type experience, I'll just get some of my friends over here and get drunk instead of watching some other group of friends get drunk. Where's the fun in that? So anyway, Donatelangelo says, topic, friendship. Friendship is good. I like it. It's a good thing. Wallaby Deviant 89 says, smooth, how do you feel about today's nerd culture? I'm in it. I've been binge watching the Clone Wars animated series for days. I mean, I'm a nerd. I make videos on the internet. I have an article on Encyclopedia Dramatica. Have you met me? But what do I think about the nerd culture? I think I'm grateful for the nerd culture because I think it's the last vestige of manliness left in our culture. That sounds a little counterintuitive. Do we think of nerds as manly, right? Because they're kind of the polar opposite of like the frat boy jock, right? But really they are, because if you look at frat boy jocks these days, they're kind of like the South Park depiction. They're these PC whip dogs. Like they're just they've become liberal to the point of emasculation, right? Whereas the nerd culture, you've got Gamergate. You've got the nerds are like, they're red pilled. That's why I like them. They're the only kindred spirits left. So that's how I feel. So what do we got here? The Takizo Shinman says, "You look European as fuck, dude." I am. I'm Irish, Scottish, and English. P.S. That gay mustachio dough. This is not a mustachio dough. This is a handlebar mustache. A mustachio is like the little whatever. Draconian Kindness says, "For a moment I thought you were making a video from a jail cell. Well, I am in the U.S. Welcome back, though. Thank you. You probably thought that because of my bed, which is a hospital bed. But the reason I like it is, pair of handcuffs on that thing. Oh, forget it. We don't need to go into that. Anyway. So, elaborate on your changes, says Lion Cross. I think I've been doing that, but I will continue to do it more. Thought Pattern says, welcome back. Thank you. In the beginning was the splurge. Says, talk about yourself. I never really talk about much else. Photon666 says, talk about why you aren't an atheist. Oh, I will. It's coming. Perpetual Tiredness says, welcome back, Fakesagan. I would be delighted if you could do a good old-fashioned ponage video. Do people even still say ponage? I mean, aren't there like whole new terms for that now? Isn't it like getting wrecked or fucking... What do they say now? Prawned or whatever? I don't know. Wrecked, shots fired... I don't know, I can't remember my memes. I'm not going to make a ponage video. If I make a ponage video, the only person I'm going to pwn is myself at this point. And that video may happen, but I'm not going to pwn other people anymore. So, what do we got here? Please, can you explain how you're not an atheist anymore? Yep, it's coming. Chemo Embryo says, to Yo Fakey, cool to see you back on the tubes. We need to make a date with certain misfits and have a live stream someday. Talk about whatever the fuck pisses you off and gets you off at the same time, fucker. Sin more, kill a whore. I don't think I'll be murdering any prostitutes anytime soon, but I would love to do some old school blog TV type stuff, so you set it up. And if I'm not at work or fapping or whatever at the time, count me in. And Photon666 says, elaborate on your changes. Wait, didn't I read that one? Sounds familiar. Whatever. Anyway, oh, no, it's like Lion Cross, elaborate on your changes. Photon666, elaborate on your changes. Even the capitalization and punctuation is the same. No, he used the period and he didn't. Okay, good. I don't have to get paranoid. All right. So let's do just that. Let's move back to the questions that we skipped before. Beginning with Scotty Rules, 33. Are you living in the Russian Federation? I don't think I'm doxing myself by telling you that I am not living in the Russian Federation, no. Why are you not an atheist anymore? Okay. Okay. First of all, let me give you a little background on my view of the world, which differs significantly from most people's. In fact, I already know I'm going to draw a lot of accusations of insanity for what I'm about to say. And I don't care. I've considered for quite some time that the distinction between... Let me back up for a minute. There's a philosopher, 20th century philosopher, not very well known, named Guy Murchie. That's Guy like Guy, hey Guy, and Murchie like Murchie. And he had a lot of very interesting ideas. And one of them was that the distinction which is drawn in the natural sciences between life and non-life, between the organic and the inorganic, may be a bit more arbitrary than we think. What do I mean by that? Well, science is full of things that bend definitions. Human beings like to categorize the world. We like to cut reality into small, bite-sized pieces that are easy to digest. But by doing so, we kind of sacrifice a bit of the big picture. So, of course, it's easier to understand the biosphere of the planet you live on if you divide it into sections. We got the animal kingdom over here. We got the plant kingdom over here. Never the twain shall meet. But what do you do about mold? It exhibits some characteristics of a plant and some characteristics of an animal. So what category does that fit in? And, you know, even within the same kingdom, the way we classify things can be very arbitrary, like frogs and toads. What's the difference between a frog and a toad? I challenge anyone to give me a concrete answer to that. Because if you research it, what you'll find is that there's a ton of species that kind of exhibit characteristics of both, where you can't tell what section. Is it a toad? Is it a frog? Is it a frog with some toad features? Is it a toad with some frog features? What is it? Now, what about life itself? Viruses instantly come to mind. Is a virus alive? Is it life? It has some of the characteristics of life, but lacks others. It doesn't reproduce sexually, but it does reproduce. It doesn't consume food, yet it certainly behaves like a living organism. Then again, so do prions. And prions are just like basically like protein with a corrupt code, like it's got a computer virus. You know, where do we classify these things? Is a prion alive? Is a virus alive? Are you alive? Am I? What about crystals? Mineral crystals? In a way, you could say they have a morphology the way animals do. They conform to a certain shape that never changes. They reproduce. They grow. They have environments that they inhabit. And there's places where they can't form. Why do we consider them inorganic? It seems to exhibit a lot of the characteristics of life to me. I know this might be challenging to a lot of you, or you just think I'm crazy. I'm okay with that. And I only... You know, why did I even go off on that tangent? How does that have any pertinence? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it has no bearing on what I'm about to explain, but I feel that it's relevant somehow. So, the first inkling that I had that there might be a creator was when I was contemplating neuroscience and the hard problem of consciousness. And if you're not familiar with what that is, there's a Wikipedia article. Hard problem of consciousness. But to give you the Cliff's Notes version, essentially the hard problem of consciousness asks, through what process do our sensory experiences of the external world acquire qualia? What is qualia? That's a little difficult to explain. Qualia is the essence of an experience. Why does red look like red, right? Why does blue look like blue? Why do we feel that good things are good and bad things are bad? Okay. When we touch a flame, why doesn't our brain simply process the information like a computer? Oh, this is damaging your body. Remove your hand. Why do we instead feel? Ouch. Neuroscience isn't able to answer that question. So right off the bat, a lot of people are screaming, God of the gaps. Oh, you're filling in a gap in human knowledge with God, like people always have. Oh, you don't know why lightning bolts come out of the clouds? It must be God. Perhaps. Maybe I am. But I have my own theory about why the hard problem of consciousness is so hard. And here's what it is. I think we're looking for the origin of consciousness in the wrong place. I think that searching for the origin of consciousness in the brain is like searching for the origin of a radio program inside a quartz crystal. This is a receiver. Consciousness resides in the brain. The brain is the seat of consciousness. Without a brain, you don't have consciousness. But it does not therefore logically follow that consciousness is produced by the brain. I think the brain receives consciousness like a radio signal. So from whence consciousness? First of all, let's back up a minute. You've made an extraordinary claim, Smooth Terrorist. Why do you think the brain receives consciousness like a radio signal? Where'd you get that? Where'd you get that half-baked idea from? You guys ever notice the phenomenon of scientific discoveries being made contemporaneously on different ends of the globe at about the same time? Or new political philosophies or religious ideas kind of just springing up all over the world at about the same time? Or what about how a group of monkeys on one end of this jungle over here can learn how to use a stick to crack open the coconut or whatever the case may be, and then this other group of monkeys on the other side of the jungle learns how to do the same thing at the same time without communication? How do you account for that? Do you account for it? Or is it something you ignore because there's no convenient explanation? I know what I believe, guys. And I don't care who thinks I'm crazy. I never have. So, when I began to believe that the origin of consciousness was something external, then I had to ask myself, from whence consciousness? Is there a great soul, a mass soul from which other souls derive? And of course, that's the short definition of God. And it wasn't too long after I came around to this new way of thinking that I decided to join an organized religion. And a lot of people think that's a very big leap. How do you go from just having this vague, nebulous conception that there might be something greater out there to, oh, I'm going to go to a building every week and chant a bunch of ancient scripture with a bunch of other people? That's a big leap. But I really don't think it is. Because even though I've always kind of been suspicious of people who purport themselves to be experts, there have always been some areas of life where I admit that expertise is necessary. I don't do surgery on myself at home. You know, if I need surgery, I go to the hospital. I tore my rotator cuff lifting weights when I was 15. I'm 36 years old and it still hurts because I didn't know what I was doing. And there are some things that are too important not to have guidance. So I joined an organized religion. And all I can tell you guys is that the benefits to me in my life have been innumerable. I'm a happier person. I think I'm a better person. And I know exactly how this sounds to all the atheists in the audience. They're hearing it something like this. I am a happy person since I found religion. My life is so wonderful. Yeah, like they think I've been brainwashed, right? It's self-delusion. Well, maybe so. But nobody came knocking on my door. I wasn't kidnapped by theists and held hostage. They didn't tape my eyelids open and force me to watch a bunch of films. I sought them out. I went to them. And I haven't looked back since. So there you go. Now, where was I? Concerns about world events of today. NSA Snowden. Never really talked about Snowden, did I? It just occurs to me now that, like, I was on a hiatus during that whole thing. Even though I will proudly say that I was talking about NSA spying before it was cool, and all you guys made fun of me. I remember it. Do you? You remember calling me paranoid for talking about Thin Thread and Prism? From way back in the day before the Snowden leaks and WikiLeaks? You remember that? Probably not, right? Maybe Zarash has the videos. But I was talking about it, and you guys said I was paranoid. Well, who's paranoid now? Really, who's paranoid now? Are you going to admit that I was right? Probably not. As for Snowden, do I fall into the hero camp, or do I fall into the traitor camp, or do I fall into the third camp? We'll call this one the Alex Jones camp, where Snowden is actually like a disinfo agent of the New World Order, and he's like controlled opposition or something. Hero camp. Let me make it simple for you. Hero. Why? Because I have been following that story. I didn't just drop that story when the mainstream media did. I stayed with it, and I've been watching his interviews. I watched the TED Talk that he gave. I've seen him on all kinds of news programs. And when you get to hear that guy talk, you can tell he's sincere. Now, maybe that doesn't meet some of your standards of evidence. Oh, you have a good feeling. You like the cut of his jib, so that means he's an okay guy? Yeah, I don't think so, Smooth Terrorist. Well, you gotta realize, guys, how old are most of you? I'm 36. I've seen a lot of BS come from the media and government over the course of my lifetime, and after a while you learn to recognize it. So when you hear a genuine patriot speak about civic duty, you know he's being honest. Anyway, what was the motivation? If he's a, I mean, the guy lived in Hawaii. He was making sick bank, and now he has to hide in a foreign country. So I admire Edward Snowden. I'm Team Edward. Russia taking over the Ukraine territories is the next thing Scotty Rules 33 wants me to talk about. Well, for one thing, the way you phrased that pissed me off, and I think you did it on purpose. But maybe you really are just watching a lot of mainstream US news, and you really think that's what's going on. Because if you watch the Western media, what you would think is going on is that you've got these two countries, Russia and Ukraine, which are so different, right? They're like night and day. I mean, it's almost like Putin sent troops to take over Mexico or something. That's a sovereign. Because stay away, Russians, right? Okay. And if you believe what the media says in this country, then you think that the people of Ukraine, by their own volition, had a revolution because they weren't happy with things, and they said, Russians, get out. We want to be in the EU. Well, it didn't exactly happen that way. How do you know how it happened? How do I know how it happened? Because I was following it from day one, before it even broke the news. I was on the international forums on 4chan talking to Ukrainian people when Euromaidan first started, back when the first rumblings of dissent were just beginning. I was getting information straight from the horse's mouth, so I know what the hell is going on. Oh, 4chan, that's a reliable source of information, isn't it? Right? Well, you know, if you want to know about another country, you better talk to people from that country and stop listening to the clown media, because they're gonna lie. Anyway, so here's the real deal on Ukraine. You guys ready to get red-pilled? Here comes the truth. What happened in Ukraine was that an unholy alliance of the financier George Soros and the U.S. State Department put their money together and paid for a coup. And it's a specific kind of coup that's known in modern political parlance as a color revolution. Why is it called that? Because after the fall of the Soviet Union, a bunch of former Soviet countries also had revolutions, the result of which ended with US-friendly leaders being installed and deals being made with the IMF and people joining NATO, and, you know, come on, guys. You know the score, right? I don't have to explain this, do I? Right? I mean, we all know, we've all read Confessions of an Economic Hitman by now, haven't we? You know, it was every bit as much a revolution as the revolution that ousted Mohammed Mossadegh. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, bone up. But, you know, we've been doing this, we've been playing the same dirty tricks for a long time. Long time. And I think the world's caught wise to it by now. But basically, the State Department spent $5 million. That's not a conspiracy theory, it's on record. Financing certain NGOs in Ukraine. Non-governmental organizations. What a misnomer. Is there such a thing? The answer is no. When Amnesty International publishes a list of the countries that have the worst human rights violations, why don't we make the list? Oh, right, because we pay for their office space, right? We pay the bills. The U.S. government is funding these non-governmental organizations. So they will slander, and all of these people, like Reporters Without Borders, all of them, you know, don't buy the crap that these are objective groups. There's nothing non-governmental about them. They have a pro-Western agenda. And anyway, getting back to the point. So the State Department funds these groups, and essentially it was a way of funneling money in a clandestine, under-the-table way towards extremist groups in Kiev. And we're talking about right-wing political extremists, guys like Azov Battalion, Right Sector, Svoboda Party, which means freedom, Orwellianly, because they stand for anything but, right? Um, and these guys, to make it short, they are Nazis. I mean that in the sense that, like, oh, Donald Trump is the new Hitler. No, I mean they're real Nazis. Real, actual Nazis. Real National Socialists who hate Jews and love Hitler. That's what they are. If you look at them, a lot of them wear the armband with the wolf's angle symbol. That's a white supremacist symbol. A lot of them support Bandera, who was a Ukrainian statesman during World War II who was a Nazi collaborator. And that this guy is their hero. They love Bandera. You know, they've openly written things in support. And am I talking? You know, so when I say they, who's they? Okay, so am I talking about just like the average soldier in the field, and his opinion doesn't necessarily represent Kiev? No, I'm talking about the Kiev government. I'm talking about the people sitting in parliament. They're publishing stuff that gushes over Hitler. You know, like we love Nazism. They're all about it, and it's amazing the way that's been covered up in Western media. The way it's not even talked about, because it's just shameful that we've actually funded and armed bona fide neo-Nazis, and that's what they are. And they instigated a coup, and they literally seized the parliament by force. Now, if you ask somebody who has a pro-Western slant, they're going to say, "Oh, it was all the parliamentary procedures were all above board. They took a vote. They had a vote. It was all very official." Yeah, I don't think votes count when the parliament building is surrounded by an army of protesters hurling Molotov cocktails. I think democracy can't really function under that level of duress, okay? So, yeah, there was nothing legitimate about that quote-unquote revolution, which was actually a coup. And for one thing, what's the difference between a coup and a revolution? A revolution is when the people change the government. A coup is when the government changes itself. It's when certain power players make a power grab. That's a coup. And they always try to portray them as revolutions. No one ever calls a coup, but that's what it was. Now, is this just he said, she said semantics? Kind of like one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist, one man's statesman is another man's dictator. No, this is not semantics. These are concrete differences. There is a appreciable difference between a revolution and a coup, and that was a coup. And most Ukrainians do not support the government in Kiev. They don't. You know, there's this belief in the West that the polite people, aka the green men, in Crimea, were Russians that hopped the border. They're not. They were Ukrainians. They were Ukrainians that identified with Russian culture, and they didn't want to side with these Nazis. Nazis took over? Well, count us out. They didn't want anything to do with it. And, you know, obviously Putin played a hand. He was funding and arming these guys, I'm sure, but he didn't send them there. They were there to begin with. Now let's talk about Crimea, and let's talk about Ukraine. Because I've noticed that one thing the media in this country will never do is tell you anything about the history of Ukraine. Have you noticed that? It's like they just expect you all to know everything about Ukraine. Really, they expect you to know nothing about it, which you do, and they're counting on that. Because they want to try to sell this story like, oh, Ukraine and Russia are night and day. They like invaded a foreign country. Well, what does the word Ukraine mean? Let's find out. So, stupid pen. Okay. Looks like an N, and I've got dyslexia, but it isn't. It's a Russian letter. It's the letter E. But if I were to put this little tilde on top of it, it becomes E kratkaya, which means cut off E. Because the KRA means cut. For example, Russia is divided into what are known as krays. And you could compare that to like territories in Canada. Or provinces, rather. I'm sorry, you could compare it to like provinces, right? Like there's Krasnoyarsk Krai. And a krai means a cut, a section. So what does Ukraine mean? Ukraina means at the border. At the border. At the cut. So when the name of your country literally means border, what does that tell you about the distinct cultural identity and sovereignty of that country? Is it really as culturally distinct as the Western media would like you to believe? The answer is no. Without Ukraine, there would be no Russia. The birthplace of Russian culture and history is Kiev, and specifically an ethnic group called the Kievan Rus, which later went on to divide into subgroups, being the Muscovy, the Muscovites, and the what we think of as the Ukrainians today. So they used to be one thing, and then they split. Now, have you guys heard of somebody named Nikita Khrushchev? He was only the premier of the Soviet Union, which is not Russia's old name. It was a whole big conglomeration of countries in Eastern Europe, not just the one, because people get that wrong, amazingly. Now, Khrushchev was Ukrainian, and he decided, unsurprisingly, to give a gift to Ukraine. And he gave Ukraine Crimea, Krim, as it's called. And that was in the 1960s, I think. So not too long ago. Before that, it was officially part of Russia. So, you know, the way the Western media, I almost said Western media, the way the Western media portrays what happened in Crimea, like Putin stole it. Like Putin shoplifted the place or something, right? Oh, he had no claim on that at all. Yeah, it's always been Russian clay, guys. It's always been their soil. Always. 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 And it always will be. I don't see that changing anytime soon. But the point is, you know, you guys have been sold a bill of wares. You guys have been fleeced by the media in this country, and not just this country, the Western media in general. CBC, The Guardian, you know, that's not alternative media, even if you think it is. Follow the money. And it's just been one lie after another, like that Korean flight that the pro-Russian separatists in Donbass supposedly shot down. Yeah, they don't have anti-aircraft guns. They don't even have an air force. You know who does? The government in Kiev. So put two and two together on that one. You know, you don't need anybody to tell you you're being lied to if you exercise a little common sense and just think about this stuff. The lies are apparent. But I do feel sorry for people in Ukraine because they're caught in the middle of a pissing match. You know, the pro-Russian side and the pro-US side, they're caught in the middle, and they're the ones suffering. And You know, they're the ones getting caught in the crossfire, and it's shameful. But the point is, this was a power grab that went wrong. It was a color revolution that failed. Well, a partial success, because we didn't get the whole thing. We didn't get the parts we really wanted, i.e. Crimea. But it's baloney. It wasn't a revolution. It was a coup. So to answer you, Scotty Rules 33, what do I think of Russia taking over the Ukraine territories? I don't, because that didn't happen. That characterization is completely inaccurate. All right. So, what do we got here? What do we got here? NSA, Snowden, Russia taking over the Ukraine. What else we got here? Syria. The Time Traveler 83 wants to know about ISIS in Syria. So, like I said, ISIS is just our old bag of tricks. You know, when it comes to U.S. foreign policy, I could explain it to a 5-year-old, because there's 2 tricks that we do. 2. 1, we fund coups. 2, we arm crazy Muslims and use them as weapons. And we've been doing both of those things for decades. You know, ISIS, like I said, it's just like what we did in Afghanistan. It's the same thing, using Muslims as weapons against the Russians. How did that work out for us last time? How's it going to work out this time? And, you know, the people that want to see this pipeline and get built through Syria, they don't care about the human collateral damage. They don't care about the people in Paris who got killed by the terrorist attacks, because they only see green. They're in it for the oil. It's about a pipeline. It's always been about a pipeline in the Middle East. It's always about oil. Don't ever believe it has anything to do with human rights. Because why aren't we in Africa? I mean, there's the argument ender right there. Okay, if we care about the rights of citizens in Syria, why aren't we in Africa, straightening out human rights issues over there? Because they don't have oil. And Syria has always been a Russian client state, the way Israel is the United States' client state. And it's not that Syria is the only country that Russia has good relations with in the Middle East. You know, they get along well with Iran too. But that's their big player there, the way that Israel is ours. And Assad has always been close to the Kremlin, and that's why we want him gone. He's not U.S. friendly. He's Russian friendly. So we're trying to get rid of him for that reason. And that poison gas attack in Syria, you better believe that was us. You better believe we were behind that. If you think Assad did that, oh boy. Gullible people out there if you believe that. I mean, what would his motivation be? He's on top. He's got the country on lock. He's the ruler. Why would he start killing people? That's what the wolf climbing the hill does, not the wolf on top of the hill. The wolf on top of the hill doesn't destabilize his own country. He wants to promote the most stability he can, because he's winning the game. So he wants to put the cards down and stop playing, right? You know, anybody who's sowing the seeds of discord, they want regime change, not to preserve the regime that's already in power. So use simple common sense, guys. You don't need a smoking gun. You don't need to find a shell of a gas canister somewhere that says made in the US on it. Just use common sense. That's all you need to do. Just learn to start seeing Brzezinski's grand chessboard, and it'll all make sense to you. Because that's what this is. It's just Game of Thrones in real life. And they're gambling with your life and spending your tax dollars to fund terrorist groups. And you're not going to do anything about it. They know that. So, that's what I have to say about Ukraine, Russia, and Syria. And I also have to say that Putin is playing, and this, you know, everybody talks about what a good tactician he is, but really, you can't say enough about it. You guys remember that movie Cool Hand Luke with Paul Newman from way back in the day, where at one point he's playing a card game with somebody and he bluffs and the person falls for the bluff, and then they see his hand and they're like, oh, you didn't have nothing. And he goes, well, sometimes nothing is a pretty cool hand. That's Putin. He's got no hand to play, and he's playing it masterfully. You know, the way that, like, for example, and I'm not going to get into Crimea because it's a complex situation. It would take way too long to explain, and I know this video is already coming up on like 45 minutes. But let's talk about Syria. That bombing raid that he did on ISIS, in and out, efficient, got the job done and left before the US and EU could even discuss a second round of sanctions. He was just like, oh, got the job done, we're out. Oh, Vlad, I love it. So anyway, boy, I've been rambling for a long time. Let's refresh and see if there's any new comments. And if not, I'm going to wrap this up. That is me. Talk about how you're no longer an atheist. Up, I did that. My deal is I no longer care about atheism. Yeah, I went through that stage. Before I, became a theist, I did go through the disillusioned with atheism stage where I'm kind of like, oh yeah, these guys act exactly like fundamentalists. Like, they're every bit as intolerant and stupid. So I'm right with you on that one. And I think that's the only new comment we've got here. Let me make sure. The refugee crisis. Okay, Nobody92 says, current events, the refugee crisis, your thoughts on that, your thoughts on the candidates running for president in the States. I have no thoughts on that. I assume you're not living in the US anymore. The title of your video suggests Eastern European, I'm guessing Russian. What made you move there? You say you're not an atheist anymore. How about you talk about that? I'm gonna level with you, Fakey. You haven't been around in a while, but I've been watching you for about a decade. Quite frankly, I'm shocked that you posted a video. It sounds like your audience subscribers come from that camp. Tell us what's going on. Okay. Wearing out my voice. Okay. So, the refugee crisis. This is one of those examples of how tertiary consequences of an act can also have benefits for those who perpetrated that act. Okay. How vague? What do I mean by that? Well, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. The war on drugs, okay? It serves many purposes for those in power. Number one, they get to lock up poor people. Number two, they get to lock up minorities. Number three, they get to take an enormous amount of revenue because they're essentially shaking down the drug dealers the same way the mafia does. Hey, you're going to deal on my turf? You got to give me some. Basically what's going on. So you see how just by declaring that one war on drugs, the government got their fingers in a whole bunch of pies. They got a whole bunch of benefits from doing that. Some of which are harder to see than others. Well, the refugee crisis is like the same thing. We're not in Syria to fill Europe with refugees. Okay, we're in Syria to get control of an oil pipeline, to build an oil pipeline, right? I can't remember if it's we're trying to build a pipeline or we're trying to prevent Putin from building one. It doesn't matter. Is there really a functional difference? Who cares? But that's essentially what's going on. And that's why we're really doing it. But if it happens to generate a couple of refugees, and they happen to destabilize the European economy so that the petrodollar doesn't have as much competition from the euro, not bad, right? And if it results in some terrorist attacks in Europe that allow us to maybe increase our military presence over there, hey, we got to come protect you guys from this thing that we created. Not bad, right? So that's what I think about the refugee crisis. It's very convenient for those in power. What do I think about the candidates running for president in the States? This isn't real politics, all right? This is a puppet show for children. Stop paying attention to it. Don't insult your own intelligence that way. You don't have a dog in the race. No matter who wins, the country is going to look exactly the same 10 years from now. We're going to have the same foreign policy, the same domestic policy, because the people authoring those policies are in Wall Street, not in the White House. I said it all. There you go. And these candidates, quote unquote, they're not politicians. They're more like actors. They're more like professional celebrities. That's all they are. They're talking heads. They're puppets. Don't pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. You know, just stop falling for it, guys. Please. I assume you're not living in the U.S. anymore. I am still living in the U.S. I'm still living in the U.S. The title of your video suggests, yeah, I have been studying the Russian language for the past 2 years. I'm by no means fluent. Немного говорю по-русски. Очень немного, very little. Why am I doing this? Does it have something to do with your politics, or something to do with you trying to, like, avert a World War III type scenario through meaningful cultural exchange with the enemy? Or is it just because you're like a nerdy Russophile? Yes. So, what do we got? I'm gonna level with you. Oh no, we read that part. Okay, what else we got here? Reptilian conspiracy, I already did that one. I think we're good. I think we're done. Yeah, we're done. So, download, re-upload, blah, 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 all that stuff. Пока.